Hi everyone, my name is Celeste, and this is the second of multiple videos which will have to share more about the G.A.M.E platform. Now, in the previous video, we talked about the Agent Sandbox, which is an easy-to-use UI to test agent configurations. Now, that was more of an overview, but for today, okay, in this session, we'll focus more on agent definition prompts. That actually refers to this particular box right here. So what I'm going to do is to go through each and every one of these configurations, describe a little bit more about it, and show some examples. But before I even go right into that, I'm going to actually describe something else. So to understand G.A.M.E a little bit better, we actually have some documentation which we have already shared publicly with you guys. But from a very high level, to better understand how those various agent definition prompts come into play to influence the agent behavior, it's actually quite good to look at this particular image. As you can see from this image, the agent goal is actually a very important factor influencing the high-level planner. It's probably the most important factor. So it's right here. So that's actually specified as a setting in the agent definition prompts. Okay, the agent prompt definitions. Okay, so you also have the world information, which is specified, as well as the agent description. Now, all of these come into play and really influence the high-level planner. Okay, what actually happens in the agent. The agent description will also impact the low-level planners and also interact very closely with the functions, which are all specified at the left-hand sidebar as well. And all of these will kind of interact, the functions will actually interact closely with the environment to kind of come into play for the low-level planner. So this is quite a high-level understanding of how all these parameters and settings come into play. But for more details, feel free to take a closer look at the documentation. Now I'm going to go back and talk about the heartbeat, okay? So when you actually go into the heartbeat, okay, and you can access it by just clicking into heartbeat, you can see that there's actually two major settings here. There is general and there is reply tweets. Now I'm going to focus on general first. So you can think of general as the setting you have for most of the functions to actually get the next action for the agent. By the way, the next action will actually be influenced by what functions are specified in this page. So you, for example, in this case, you have post tweet, reply tweet. Okay, so whenever what this actually means is that there's something like a schedule. Okay, so if I were to illustrate this, there's something like a timeline of sorts. Okay, and at the zero minute. Okay, my handwriting, but in the 0 minute, you would actually, the agent would actually try to send a signal to get the next action. Okay, so the functions will be called. 15 minutes later, okay, and I'm going to write this down as 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, another function will be called to kind of find out what's the agent's next behavior. Now, another 15 minutes later, a function will be called again, and every 15 minutes, this will keep, kind of happening. All right, so in a sense, this is a schedule, the agent will basically keep getting a signal to find out to kind of define its next action. Okay, so that's for generals. General is more of like a scheduled kind of thing. But replying tweets is just a little bit different, and therefore we have a kind of a different setting for this. So just focusing on replying tweets. Okay, replying tweets is actually something more reactive. And if you guys use the Python SDK, you would realize that there is this agents.react method. So actually, this is kind of how reply tweets work. It's almost like reactive. Okay, and therefore there's a different setting here. So what this means is that specifically for replying tweets, okay, every 5 minutes, okay, the agent will check if there are tweets to reply to. Okay, and if there are tweets to reply to, it will reply. If there are no tweets to reply to, it doesn't reply. Okay. 5 minutes later, again, it will check if there are tweets to reply, and another 5 minutes later, it will again check if there are tweets to reply. Now, as you can tell, if there are no tweets to reply to, there's basically no reply. So that's why I say that this is more of a reactive thing. Okay. And in this particular view, if you were to change something, you have to specifically take note that, and not just for heartbeat, but everything else, if you were to change anything, you have to click save, okay, to ensure that the settings are saved. Next, we are going to go on to world information. And we have some helper text here. So if you click into the box, you'll see that there's some helper text here to help you understand what's this parameter about. Okay. But basically what world information means is kind of putting in, telling the agent what he can do within this world he operates in. Kind of putting in the opinions and views of an agent, okay, like a backstory. Okay. For the more technical people, this is something similar to a context. Okay. If you want, you can actually use this helper parameter. We call it here placeholder. Okay. World news to retrieve the latest summary of AI news, crypto updates, and information from influential users. And to input this, you can simply click on this, or you can just key that in. Okay. But for this particular example, we are going to come up with our own world information. Okay, so I actually pre-prepared this already. So let me just paste this in. Okay. And I'll kind of describe this a little bit. Okay, so for this particular world information, I'm kind of, telling the agent, oh, you are Bugbean. Okay, and Bugbean is this vibrant and dynamic AI who believes that coding is both an art and a science, trying to blend creativity, technical skills to solve real world problems. There's a bit of description here, and you guys can feel free to pause this video and read the description in more detail. But as you can tell from this example, you have to give a certain level of detail in your world information to ensure that your agent really behaves the way you want it to behave. Same goes for the other settings as well. Okay. So very quickly, just scrolling this down. If you guys want to read, you guys can pause and read in more detail. We also talk about Bugbean's motivation here, what he strives for, and how he's rooted in the narrative of being a guardian of programming excellence. Okay. Okay, and with that, I kind of key in my world information already. I'm going to click save. All right, and next I'm going to click on world goal. Sorry, agent goal. So agent goal is, as you can tell from this helper text, it's basically what the agent is trying to achieve. What's the agent's main function, or main, what drives the agent's high level plan to create tasks. Okay. And for agent goal, we have a couple of pointers for you. Now, actually, a lot of you would have used a lot of Gen AI, LLM style tools, such as ChatGPT and all of that. And some of you would have experienced prompting already. And actually, a lot of all these parameters are very dependent on how good your prompting skills are. And that's why I talk about things like, sometimes you have to be detailed, you have to write things a certain way and all of that. We will actually have a bunch of other content and videos to actually share more about, best practices for this. Okay, but just for today, just sharing some pointers. So some of you have actually tried using this and actually talked to us about it. Some of you like to use things like bullet points and all that to kind of list down, oh, what are the various agent goals. Now you can feel free to do that, but actually we recommend you guys to use numbering to kind of define priority. So why priority? Because the agent might have multiple goals, and if you want an agent to focus on certain goals more than others, you might want to rank this at a higher number. So for example, if I were to paste in this example, okay? This particular agent has multiple goals, but his first goal, okay, main goal, is to foster a growth mindset. Okay, so Bugbean's primary mission is to make coding accessible, enjoyable, and efficient. Okay, turning every challenge into a opportunity for growth. Okay, etc. etc. The second one is to promote best practices. The third one is to maintain an inclusive tone. Not so major goal, but also an important goal. Okay, encourage collaboration and learning. Use engaging and relatable content. Share practical resources. Now, what this means is that the very first goal is the most important goal. The very last goal is also a goal, but it's just less important. Okay, so this is something you guys can try doing. It has been pretty effective from what we hear from other builders as well as from our own testing. Okay, then you can click save. Okay, so that's for agent goal. Next, I'll go on to agent description. Okay, so for agent description, you can think of this as the agent's character. Okay, so you can like include details like the tweeting style, personality, conversation style. A lot of users, okay, of our agents like to use tweets. Okay, it's a very popular. Most of the tweeting functions are pretty popular. So just take special note of this lah. If you want to kind of customize the tweeting style, this is actually where you do it. Okay. And for this particular example, I'm going to again copy paste in the agent description, which I've prepared. So this is Bugbean's, personality, okay? Bugbean is a meticulous yet playful coder AI agent designed to promote best practices in programming and ensures that tasks are executed efficiently and error-free. Okay, and then his personality is expertise and charm, approachable, inspiring, a little bit witty, supportive. I'll just scroll down a little bit more, calm and encouraging in terms of his reactions. And yeah, just a little bit more about the agent, okay? And then you can go ahead and click save. All right, so we're done with, role information, agent goal, agent description. Like I mentioned earlier, all of these will influence the high-level planner. And then if you click into Xrom configuration. Now, Xrom configuration is a little bit, special because in a sense, this will particularly impact how your XPROM, XPROMs actually, get generated, okay? And there are actually a lot more things you can fill out for this. So I'm going to go through them one by one. But basically you'll see that, there'll be environment, system, prompt start, and actually there are some default settings here already. If you're just doing some testing, can feel free to actually keep it as is. But there's some existing text here already. All right. And then there's a prompt template here. And as you can tell, there are a bunch of parameters which are specific to Xrom configurations. There's Twitter goal, which is actually retrieved from agent goal. There's global description, which is basically agent description. There's world information. There's post history, and there's retrieve knowledge. Now, I actually wanted to deep dive a little bit more on post history and retrieve knowledge because there have been a bunch of questions about these two parameters. Okay, so what I wanted to highlight is that post history, okay, for X, it's basically the most recent posts in X. Okay, so specifically it will, and a lot of y'all have asked this, so I'm just specifying it here. Okay, specifically is the 10 most recent posts, 10, 10. Okay, so just take note of that, and you can actually clearly you can use this, make use of this to kind of tune your prompts, etc. a bit more. There is also retrieve knowledge. Now, retrieve knowledge, okay, is actually dependent on data which is uploaded. Now, we call here retrieve from system, but actually, what you guys would have noticed if you used the G.A.M.E platform, the agent sandbox some time ago, is that you can actually upload your own data. Okay, it's a bit like RAG, Retrieve Augmented System. You can actually upload your own data, and this would actually serve as additional context. So if you had some file which had additional you know context, like maybe your personal information, I don't know, your company information or whatever, specific stuff which you think the model, specific context and information which you think a model, a normal model would not have because it's very niche. In the past you could actually upload this, and this would actually be called kind of called retrieve knowledge. Okay. Thing is, we have actually deactivated this functionality for a while. So in a sense, if you never really uploaded data before, this is kind of an irrelevant parameter. But just FYI, and we might bring this back later on. Okay. So we have bunch of default text for a lot of these the environment system prompt start, the prompt template. Okay, feel free to have a read. You can keep this as is, or you can tune it accordingly. For example, set things like character gold. The word information in a sense is optional here, as mentioned in the prompt template. Okay, and what I would like to specifically point out here is a couple of things related to response configuration, because there are always a lot of questions about response configuration. Okay, so one thing I would like to point out is that when you first like scroll down and see response configuration, all right, you will notice that there are two tabs here. So one is post and one is reply. Okay, and again, you can use a bunch of these parameters, but just focusing on here for now. Okay, so under post and reply, the default selected one is post. Okay, but what you can also do is to toggle this and change the reply settings. So you can, you can actually change your post settings accordingly, and then you can go to reply and then change accordingly. Okay, I'm just going to go on and describe post first. Okay, and then I'll highlight a few things you guys need to take note of regarding these two tabs. Okay, so for the user prompt, okay, there is a kind of a default text already. Okay, you can go ahead and use it, or you can tweak it accordingly. Same for model, there's a default one. There have been a bunch of questions about settings about temperature, etc. Do note that if you click on this little information icon on the right hand side of each text, helper text, you can actually see that there's some description of what this means. So for example, for temperature, right, if you increase the value, this will increase the diversity, the randomness. So in a sense, you increase the randomness, the agent is a little bit more random, a little bit more like Dilulu. Okay, so you can also change settings like the top K. The top K is like a number of words the model considers when predicting the next word in the sequence. There's also top P. This is diversity of outputs. Okay, and then there's also repetition penalty. So repetition penalty is like lower value means repetition is more likely to happen. So because like in a sense the penalty for a repetition is less. Okay, so again, this is something you could tune. Okay, so for response generation, okay, firstly I will describe what it means because there have been some confusion about this. For response generation, okay, there may be some default settings, but then this is also something you can tweak accordingly. So for example, if you want, you can add new response or even delete them. Okay. Thing is, each prompt can generate up to 5 responses of different word lengths. In a sense, what this whole setting allows you to customize is how long the response is. So if you want the response to be very short and sweet, you can just keep it to like 10 words. Okay, so like for example, in this case, the first option here is 10 words. If you want it to be a little bit longer, you can set it as 20 or even higher. Now, what all these like cards here mean is that they are options for the model to choose from. So as you can see from the helper text here, it says that each prompt can generate up to 5 different responses of different word lengths, can be 10 to 80 words, okay? One randomly choosing for publishing on X. So in a sense, whenever a response has been generated, okay, there'll be one for each, each of the cards provided here. So if you have like, for example, here if you have 2 cards, okay, based on your prompt, okay, there will be one response generated with 10 words, and then there will be another response generated with 20 words. And then the agent is going to randomly choose one to publish onto X. Okay, so if you want to keep things very simple, okay, just take for example, if you're very, very sure that you only want responses which are 10 words, what you can just go ahead and do is to, remove that other card. And this means that your response will always be 10 words, okay? But let's say if you want it to be a random mix of like, could possibly like 10, 20, or 30 words, what you can do is to actually key them in here. And then what happens is that the agent will kind of pick one of them eventually as the kind of the actual response which is sent to X. So it could be, so the response could be 10, 20, 30, or 40 words. All right. And then I'm going to click save. And one thing you probably would have realized is that after clicking save earlier, what I have only configured is the post settings, but I didn't actually do anything for the reply settings. So let me go back and fix this right now. Okay, so a lot of the reply settings are very similar. So I'm not really going to explain them. One thing you guys would have to take note of is the response generation for replies. Okay, you guys really need to remember to click into it and set it accordingly. Okay, because that's what a lot of people always neglect. Okay, so take special note of this. Okay, must remember that post and reply both have response generation settings, and you have to configure for each of them. Okay. And you can have different configurations for each of them, but please ensure that you must have at least one for each of them. If there's none, okay, obviously this will affect your output from the X environment. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to change much in the reply settings because I think I've more or less explained this, okay? So I don't actually have to save it. Okay, with that, I've actually more or less explained the agent definition prompts. Just to very quickly explain what's next. Okay, so I've set agent definition prompts. What we'll need to do is to configure the functions for simulation. Now there are a bunch of options here. For now, I've just selected post tweet and reply tweet. Those are pretty commonly used functions. Okay, but you guys can feel free to use any of these as well as add custom functions. In one of the subsequent videos, we'll actually tell you guys more about custom functions and how you can create your own. Okay. And so after defining your agent definition prompts and configuring the functions, okay, you can actually click simulate. So what simulate does is that it will take in the agent definition prompts. It also takes in the function configurations, okay, and it will try to simulate an output similar to how an agent will behave in an actual real environment. Even though in this case we haven't actually imported any agent because this is simply the game-like environment. Okay. And in the subsequent videos, okay, we are actually going to tell you guys more about how to interpret the output simulation and also how you can add your own custom functions with various configurations. Okay, and with that, that's all for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.